Hi. Welcome. Welcome. Nice group. I'm Dr. Heather LaFace. I'm a clinical psychologist. I live in Los Angeles, and I am presenting today on eating disorders and extreme states of being. So I want to just launch us in with a depiction. Read this, Juliet. Just allow yourself to kind of dwell here in the experience of my words and hold the idea that this is neither fact nor fiction, but something in between, okay? Summer, maybe June, the heat of day. Landscape provides no translation, no familiar rhythms, and you move out of time to your own refrain. You long for the cool contours of dawn, the pale hush of winter's light, anything. But something labors hard within you now, something voracious, whipping your whole body hard. Labors within a fantasy you've nourished all these years, beyond the limits, at the margins of your final frontier. And I want you to bring me to that part of myself, to that edge of myself, that sense of me that seems to lie outside forever between myself and another, at the outskirts, at the borders, fed on despair of centuries spent lingering there. The hunger begins to be the nourishment. The hunger begins to be the nourishment, like a snake devouring its own tail. You wait and return, and wait and return again. In the space between the bloodlines, your fate is revealed. And yet somehow, in spite of itself, your hope still rises. It grows into a white thorn of desire, like an antenna reaching straight to God. Just let that sit. So I wanted to kind of take it into a heavier place to start with. A place of hunger, a place of need, a place of despair, but this idea of a hope that persists, a hope that doesn't quit. So I love coming here because I get nourished when I present at these talks. There's a way that I feel you all feeling me, feeling you, feeling me, that is the very way that we are carved as subjects, the very way that we become ourselves with one another. So I've been articulating extreme states for 4 years here at Division 32, and I've been doing it from a self-organizing perspective. So that's a systems view of life. This idea that living systems have principles that organize life itself. Very robust principles, but they're organizational principles. They're not content principles, so they're very much applicable to all kinds of levels of life, including experience. So they are self-making to me, these talks, right? So the co-constitutive process by which that occurs and the nature of that occurrence itself is the same as an extreme state of being. So we're going to be doing, in a sense, hopefully you feeling in yourselves some kind of experience as we do this, a movement I'm going to try to depict. So I put the patient material at the heart of the talk and experience. So to try to depict that, to try to depict experience, right? Experience is irreducible. I cannot say It's this, it's that, it's that. When you describe experience, it doesn't get there. So I'm going to use my gestural body. I'm going to use poetry. I'm going to use metaphor. So, you know, how poetry depicts with metaphors, right? Like a ladder rising from the foul rag and shop of the heart. That's Yeats. It's this kind of thing. They bridge between impossible realities of our so-called separateness. We're not separate. Metaphors show us that. Right? Bridge impossible distinctions, basically, to render meaning to its fullest. So that's why I'm reaching for metaphor. Humanistic psychology is the place that holds up experience, right? We're all about that. I think we need to get experience plugged into neurobiology. We need to hold that tension and be able to talk about the brain without being struck down by lightning and being told that we're being reductionistic. And we also need to bring in the relational piece. So I want to take experience even more seriously. I want to get radical. And by focusing on the interaction itself, okay, concerning the self-organizing ways that we almost always affect each other in constituting. It's a demanding word, constituting. Not causing, not influencing, constituting. And constituting selfhood, identity, motivation, compulsion, and perception. So I want to take it even more seriously in depicting the way experience itself constitutes the nervous system. Read brain. So I'm talking about the brain. So what is my nervous system? Anybody? What is it? What is my nervous system? Just throw anything out there. A conduit. Okay, good. Good. Well, boy, I don't have to say anything after that. What is it? Is it my brain? And spine. Yes and no. Yeah, and organs. It's really this whole system. Where is it? Where is my nervous system? Absolutely. It's in me. But here's the radical thing about the nervous system. It's in you. My nervous system is in you, and yours is in mine. Because it's an open, nonlinear, dynamical system. It's all living systems are open, like tornadoes and ecosystems, the nervous system and the immune system. So what I mean by that is this is my boundary. This is my physical boundary. This is a spatial boundary, the division between you and me. There's another boundary of the nervous system, the paradoxical boundary. This is Varela's boundary of autopoietic systems, which is I didn't get the word up here, but one of the early users, ask me later, you can call me, email me, I'll give you everything you want to know about these names. I just didn't want to take time. But Varela talked about the autopoietic boundary. Hi, Ken. Yeah, hi. The autopoietic boundary is, please join us. The autopoietic boundary, okay, is the way that the self makes itself. It means self-making. The boundary of my nervous system is a relational boundary. Isn't that intense? That the thing that creates my nervous system is my relationships. And self-organization theory depicts that in a very, very, very mechanistic, fine-tuned way. Not mechanism that's reductionism, but mechanism that's simply micro. So the way that experience and nervous system co-constitute each other, this is reciprocal causation. It's a very hot term. It's not linear causation. It means it's the this that causes the whatever. It's the interaction itself. Okay. So what does it mean to lose oneself in an experience? To lose oneself. What does that make you think of? A kind of lostness pervades the scene, right? The loss of the usual sense of self. A change in self-perception, or maybe a perceptual change, right? So could be quite pleasurable to lose oneself in a dance, to lose oneself in a conversation, to be in flow, running, to lose oneself in lovemaking, hopefully. Los Angeles, we have mindful sex. To me, I don't want to chew the raisin slowly. I want to get lost in it. You know, another thing. So these experiences are quite pleasurable. So there's another type of lostness in losing oneself where somehow one does not feel connected to oneself in a way that's pleasurable, right? Or perhaps there is no felt sense of a connection at all. Or the connection is the type that brings one into states of alienation, despair. One feels lost in context, lost in a dissociative state, lost in an extreme state, lost in a psychotic state, or a state of starvation. So my work with patients with eating disorders, 1/3 of my practice. It's a lot of people right now. I see almost 30 people a week. And 1/3 of them are young women between the age of 13 to 26. They're all adolescents. Is anybody here under 27? You're an adolescent. It's a great time. Still developing your nervous system. I mean, the nervous system is always open, but before 27, it's developing. The brain is developing. Not to make you feel self-conscious. So I work ecologically. That's another way to signal systems thinking. And it's an interesting term. So this is a self-organizational process model of working with extreme states. The particular way I language an extreme state of being, right, instead of saying psychotic, I'm articulating self states. So selfhood, as constituted in the in-between spaces of living, that all those interactions that you have that create a state of being, not a linear, so it's problems with living, right? Not a linear causation model of functionalism, neuronal functioning, right? That's within the skull of the brain-bound individual. So that's a very isolationist, very individualist, right? So this is not individualistic. This is a polymorphous many. You might say it's non-local, meaning it's not locationist. I can't locate anything anywhere. So we cannot locate an extreme being anywhere, an extreme state of being anywhere. And that's a radical notion. It's not happening in the person. And I want to try to depict that today. So in conceptualization, treatment, case material, my experience of them is a reflection of a relational dynamical process deep in the heart of identity, motivation, purpose, perception, and the change process itself. So I am, in working with these patients, there's like a thematic coherence that shows up for all of them. It's kind of wild. Hi, welcome, nice to see you. Yeah, thank you. So I characterize it as a seeking, a constant seeking, a striving for change, a striving for difference. As well, I'm also going to try to depict the extreme states. So an extreme state, as I understand it, as I relate to it clinically, has its own way of insisting that we cannot be found in the same ways anymore. It's like, really? It is a loss of horizon. For me, it is a signal of a strange kind of hope that insists on change and reorganization, often in spite of ourselves. So you're here with me now, and I think there's a way that we're together, and that togetherness is in spite of ourselves. we might not want to be as connected up as we are, or we might desperately want to be more connected up than we are. But this is happening all the time. So in working with these states, extreme states signal to me that hope prevails and never stops at all. And that's a radical note. Character. Embody the ways we no longer feel at home in the world, the way we no longer want to make a home in the world. In eating disordered patients, it is the ultimate wish for freedom from the unutterable, unbearable dependence we have on one another to call us into being, to render us human, to carve us as subjects. We, right here, are enfolded in an interaction that creates both subjective and objective experiences. We aren't self-organizing. So when I say that, and this is how it's written, don't think self, think organization. Think network, think pattern, think context. This is telltale signs of systemic life when you have those. So self-organization refers to an autonomous process, an automatic process that creates itself as a unity, constructs itself through dynamical relations with the environment, through self-referential looping. Self-reference, that's the basic unit. So extreme states of being are characterized by self-organizing structure. We're characterized by that. We're enfolded in this process that is life. So I am keenly interested in these interactions. You know, I was saying we're going to focus on the interaction. We're going to take that more seriously. What about the ones that take on a life of their own? That's exactly where I want to be. So this way, we're enfolded in interaction that constrains, creates, modulates, and controls the intentions of those involved in it. That is radical. That means you're not driving. And you know what, we're not driving anyway. But the sense of our perception tells us at times we are. So to feel oneself carried along in a larger, irreducible experience that belies interpretation or description is to lose oneself, right? You detach yourself from any immediate desire or purpose one does not need, possibly. This detachment is freedom. Now for me, this lostness has a duplex character from my experiences of extreme states. And I've had the negative ones too. But mostly, when I lose myself, I feel profoundly interconnected. I feel very intensely engaged in my context, very connected, like I do here right now, to you. So it's definitely a loss of my usual sense of self, a change in perception, a change in self-perception, but I feel more like myself than ever before. So that's radical. How can I lose myself and feel more like myself? This is the moment that I also find you. This is the moment that you find yourself. Lost in an experience and the agent of it. This is the moment that I think defines good therapy, okay? The moment of being carried along in something new, but feeling more like oneself, perhaps, than ever before. So what's going on ontologically understood is the question I keep raising. I'm going to skip a little bit here, but we have this interdependence and necessity of world. We can't be without it. That's what we are, right? Creatures who are open to the world in ways that no other beings are. So self-organization is a process ontology. It gives us a true conception, and I am using the word true. Nobody likes that word, but I'm going to use it in all my postmodern irreverence. It gives us a true conception of identity and selfhood in that way that a system continually reaches beyond itself, reaches outside of itself for itself, to create itself, to make itself as a unity, as a whole, to make an identity. That's self-organization. Is that clear? Yeah. Good, clear enough. So this is a radical embodiment. And that term goes way back to Varela and colleagues around, I think, around the 80s and 90s. So this way that I'm intimately and crucially dependent upon you for my sense of me. I'm reaching out to you to find me in spite of myself, whether I like it or not. So self-organization clarifies the bond between self and other. Self, other, and world. And it depicts the positive status of alterity or difference in maintaining this bond. So when we reflect phenomenologically on our engagement with our surroundings, we see that we are always already in an emotional relationship with our world, right? Merleau-Ponty, in particular, understood subjects to be an opening into, right? And folded within. You hear the reciprocal causation in that? In thinking about the interaction itself, I want to say that we are in a homeodynamic engagement with our world that is a constant pre-reflective seeking. So this seeking system I'm referring to demonstrates a kind of purposiveness without purpose. This is what affective neuroscientist Jaak Panksepp calls a goad, like someone pushing you without a goal. He calls it the seeking system. So eating disorders are most often conceptualized as individual brain-bound neural events within behaviorist, reward-related neurocircuitry. That's so awful. So yeah, that's a behaviorist language, our so-called behavioral addictions. It's good, you know, the DSM now has put in behavioral addictions as opposed to just substance and alcohol. So, I mean, that's positive. But eating disorders are characterized, for me at least, by extreme states of being. They are foundational, relational, or ontological issues, right? This way that we belong to an experience. But an experience doesn't always belong to us. So treating the thoughts and behaviors is offering Cartesian solutions to an ecological problem. In order to treat an eating disorder ecologically from a systems view of life, we have to understand the nature of our nervous system, in addition to the experience of the patient and the co-constituted strangeness of that interaction. In terms of how I experience states, these states with them, and I guess my own, I think they carry a strange duplex quality. There is a larger event happening, right? Larger than the individual who thinks and plans and knows. The interaction itself has extra individual dimensions, again, as I said, that influence, constrain, modulate, create the intentions of those engaged. So you notice I'm privileging the itself. I'm not privileging the thoughts and the behaviors. They're important, right? They're really important, and they feed back down into the system. But the totality of the interaction itself is, I think, the most demanding place to be. So let's go back to dependence. Conceptualizing addiction from a disease model, okay? You've got dependency issues. Oh, I've got dependency issues, you know. I go to AA, no offense if anybody goes to AA, it's great. The problem with AA is it's a disease model. And everything about AA tells you to try not to be dependent. So basically the issue is you're dependent because there's some issues within your separate reward-related neurocircuitry in your brain, you, over there, all alone. It's your issues, and you need to figure that out and use the steps and do a lot of mindfulness to get out of your dependency. And of course you've got issues. We're always already dependent, always. So I prefer to say of interdependency issues. Okay? And thank God. Thank God for that. Nature of that interdependency offers the hope for redemption from an impossible situation. Rather than a cognitivist, behaviorist disease model, I think our extreme states and eating disorders illustrate an organismic imperative towards transformation, a striving for different otherness and change. So this seeking system updates the reward-related neurocircuitry. It's the same circuit, same area of the brain, but it opens it up to the world. Relational system. It's a social, emotional engagement system. Very hot. Unlike, our reward-related neurocircuitry. That language to me is cold. So, addiction is a tricky word. What's the hallmark of addiction? Anybody? What do you think? How do you know when addiction is there? It's really tough. It's an impossible word. It's so loaded. We really can't agree. Okay, let me try to depict, and then maybe you'll come up with what I want from you. Okay. Behind your house, there's an empty well. And you have a habit at night of wandering. You're searching for something at night. I don't know, something just wakes you up and you wander in the night. And you know that well is empty. You know there's no water in that well. But you're thirsty. God, you're thirsty this night that you're wandering. You know that well is empty, but something about the whole scene of the night and the longing and the hunger and this craving, it just somehow gets you going towards it. You're moving towards that well, and it makes you crave. Somehow just the movement towards the well that you know is empty makes you crave again and again. And you want to go back. In fact, you swear you'll never go back to that empty well in search of water that you know is not there, right? But you do. There's something about the creaky handle of the well and the way it does that, and the rope, and it's something about it that something about it means something to you. It feels like something, and you do it, and you get the well going, and then you bring it up, and there's no water, but you kind of, so what is that? What is it? It's compulsion. Yes, compulsion. To me, that is the hallmark of addiction. That's how I know it. It's also the hallmark of an extreme state. Same circuitry. So this is, with compulsion, right, there's the effort to right oneself. It's not a disease. It's that you're seeking to right yourself organismically. You're seeking something that you need. You may not know what it is, but the impulse is right. So there's no digging in the dirt with compulsion. There's no real turning over of the soil, no real transformation. There's no real nourishment. So there's no real change. Only hunger. So with compulsion, the hunger itself begins to be the nourishment. And that's the heart of it. So like a snake eating its own tail, a self-devouring closed system. But no system is ever truly closed. Remember? I've got these relational boundaries here. If it were, it wouldn't be a system. So this is the eating disordered person's dilemma. This is our dilemma, right? Dependency and need. This way, so these are some of the terms I hear in session. They're totally paradoxical. They're duplex. I crave not feeling hungry. when my patient said that, I was like, oh God, I got to write this down. Excuse me. I just want to capture it. I crave not feeling hungry. I have a continual desire to have something consume me. A desire to be consumed. Or I can't tell the difference between my craving and my need. Without this diet app, I have no idea where my need is. One patient said of her eating disorder experience, and all this material is from 2 patients. I just had to narrow it down. So she said, it gave me the consuming I wanted. When it turned towards me, it turned me towards it. It became me. I was it. It's devouring. I didn't need anything else. I didn't need anyone else. I sat alone at lunch every day at school for 2 years. I lost the 80 pounds. And then this one, she talks about how seeing is always a co-seeing. I wish I didn't need others to know what I look like. That, to me, is the most tender. We're going to get right into that with more patient material from this patient. So a body can only be itself, can only become itself by going beyond itself, right? As an integral part of the subject-object dialogue. This is phenomenological philosophy we're talking here. Reciprocal causation is a seeing and being seen, a holding and being held, where the simultaneity, by virtue, and this is directly Merleau-Ponty. So just hang with me here, because it gets a little reciprocal causative. Where the simultaneity, by virtue of our openness of our bodies to the world and openness onto things, okay, at once allows the objects, that would be you guys, to be rendered more fully into presence. And at the same time, the body becomes more completely the holding it already has on them. You feel it's all of a piece. I mean, that's why I love reading Merleau-Ponty. It just trips me out. It just holds me in this circular, yes, more, right? So this hold the world has on us. To belong in the world, one has to feel a felt sense that one belongs to the world. To feel the world's hold on us, its claim on us, paradoxically enables us to find our way through it. So here's my patient, L. We'll call her L. I look at myself in the mirror. So she came to me, went into inpatient treatment at 13. She's about my height. She was 90 pounds. She was facing death. They stabilized her medically, and then she went into this inpatient cognitive behavioral treatment center. It's the only deal in town where we are in Orange County. I work in downtown LA and Orange County. So when she came to me, she had exited treatment and was up to sort of normal weight, which is always right on this edge of thinness. She is what you'd call anorexic. She's restricting. There's no throwing up. There were what we call compensatory behaviors, where you eat and then you exercise to undo it. So at this point, she's kind of refinding her body. She's coming into a state of being where the extreme states are not dominating. So it's going to sound like she's in an extreme state, and you just got to hear it for yourself. I don't know where she is. I don't know if she's in an extreme state, she's exiting it, but I mean, that's the point, right? We can't really know. I just want to depict. So I look at myself in the mirror, and her face, she was so talking to me, and this girl, she just is so wonderfully expressive. She said, "Is that me?" And I asked her, like, she kind of paused, and I was trying to figure out if there was any judgment, or she said, "No, there's no tone to it. It's neutral." "Is that me?" I think, are those my legs? I don't know who I am. Is that me? Are those my legs? She's like, just puzzled. I sometimes wish I could feel unseen. And I record these sessions. This is verbatim. Like, I mean, I don't want to be totally unseen. I want to be seen. I don't know. It's weird. So I ask her to try to characterize it. You know, I say, it doesn't sound like you want to be invisible. She says, no, I don't want to be invisible. I just wish I didn't have to know what people think of me or imagine what they think of me. I wish I didn't need them to know how I feel or to know what I look like. I mean, so this is her coming back a year later. She went to school halfway in. She went part-time after being released. And now she's in school full-time. And she's looking at everybody and wondering if they think about her as much as she thinks about them. She says, I mean, I look at people's bodies. I look at their clothes, at their faces. I remember all of it. I remember everything about them. Do people think of me? I mean, I remember what people looked like. Do they remember me? Are they thinking of me? Do I exist in their mind? She fucking said that. I was like, later in recovery, this is the theme of newness and change. She says, let's see, how are we here? This is like a year later. And she's embodying herself differently. I want to be seen. I don't want to hide from people. I'm doing everything I can to get people to see me, to want me. So she's more focused on, she's always been focused on looks, very beautiful. Now she's trying to get an experience of herself that she wants. So this isn't shallow lookism. This is, just because you hear her saying these things, I don't want to misrepresent her. This is like core self-making. This is what all adolescents do. This is what we do all the time, I think. So she says, I'm doing everything I can to get people to see me, to want me, to do anything to make people want to be with me. I want to be talked about. I want to be looked at. Now I just, no one's looking. She's really sad. I'm wearing myself away with seeing myself. Feel that self-devouring cycle? I see myself. I want other people seeing me. And I want to see their reaction seeing me. Again, she's blowing my mind at this point. I have to not smile when patients are in pain and they sound like Merleau-Ponty. I have to okay, calm down. This is not about me and philosophy. It's about the patient. But it's this sameness. It's this beautiful sameness that is a process ontology. Self-organization, Merleau-Ponty, the seeking system, experience. To me, it's all the same. So she says, I want to see other people seeing me. And I want to see their reaction to them seeing me. Boy, I feel the same. You know, I'm bored with being in and maintaining the good zone. Now that's of her weight. There's nothing fun, nothing exciting about my body in the good zone. It's too safe. I want risk, even if it's dangerous. And she's mad. And then she kind of goes off in a little reverie. She goes, but there's something else too. She makes a fist. She goes, something else too. It's like I'm actually getting somewhere, going someplace. To see my body change right before me, it keeps me going. Anything new, even if it's about my sexuality. She says, it haunts me. Okay, it haunts me. These images, and she's talking about the Victoria's Secret models. Okay, that crazy blend of thinness and curviness and musculature. Unobtainable. Anything, okay, I don't talk about it. How this haunting haunts her. And then she says, it's for me to feel that. She makes another hand gesture. Not this, but this. And I'm like, oh, the gesture, the gesture. And I say, what's that? What's the whew? Because I get an image in myself of her coming into herself, right? Touching into her experience of herself. And that's what heals, by the way. It's just being with people in their experience. That's all I'm doing. So she says, it means, where do I stand? Right? Stand in myself. Standing in. It's very intense. Where am I? She says. Where do I stand? Where am I in all of their heads? So this standing in is at once a where am I in your head? It's all that of a piece. Like, do they like what it's all about the way I look. What I look like. I'm obsessed with this one look. The Victoria's Secret fashion show. What can I do to get people's attention? My eating disorder says, she calls it ED. I'll help. I can do it. I can do whatever I want. I have this control, and she's weeping. I have this control for one thing, and I can't use it. It makes me feel good, and I can't use it. It makes me feel like I'm worth something, like I'm achieving something. That's this system. That's what this is. This system is dopaminergic. It connects us up, not to reduce us to dopamine, but dopamine is what is a part of what constitutes a feel-good state. And it tends to be released when we're going towards in some way. You don't have to have a goal. You just have to be seeking. So to illustrate this radical interdependence of the way that we're self-organizing and this way that the boundaries are blurred between self and other, I want to read a poem. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings a tune without the words and never stops at all. That's Emily Dickinson. Hope is a feathered thing that never stops at all. This talk is a meditation on my understanding that hope has us. We may not be in possession of it, but it all has us. This is also a way to explicate this conundrum. The way that hope has us, singing the song without the words, never stops at all, implicit, bodily, affective, gestural communication. That's pointing to a whole area of neuroscience and psychology called interpersonal neurobiology, Alan Shore. So it's primary process affective communication. That's his term. Actually, his term is primary process affect. Shore added communication. Well, someone else added communication, not Shore. There's always a need, always a reaching out for newness, for change, in spite of ourselves. That's the conundrum of dependence. So unutterable, inextricable, unbearable dependence. This idea that hope has us, Eric Craig said. He and I talked about this. He's not here, but I am bringing him into this conference by saying his name. He said to me when I called him, when I found that Emily Dickinson poem, I was thinking about eating disorders at home with my dad, and I was going through my mother's drawers, who passed away a year ago, or 5 years ago, and he moved a year ago, and I'm looking for her stuff. I found these cards, and it was this Emily Dickinson poem. And I called him. I was like, oh my God, I found it. It's a depiction of the seeking system. And he said, this is what I love about Eric. He amplifies. He's an amplifier. He meets you right there, but he takes it someplace else. He says, that's so Heideggerian. This idea that we are, we have to be. Being has us, right? So when I sit with a patient who's in a state of hopelessness, who is not in possession of hope, I still feel them organizing me into their experience, calling me to them in their own manner of being. It's the pull of their gaze, right? The flicker of the muscle in their cheek, the tone of their voice, their gestural body. See, of self-organization, it's non-conscious, non-verbal, bodily, affective. It's beyond feeling, below thought, faster than words. It's primary process affect. What's the power of that? What's the power of being carried along in something larger than oneself? It carries me along, pulls me, exhibits an autonomy that is just a perceptual dimension of this larger totality that is the coupling, the entrainment of our two nervous systems. The nervous system's always coupling. I love that word. And all the systemic non-reduction that this entails. So Levinas was concerned with this gaze, with the pull of the gaze, with the ethics of this pull, the demand the gaze of the other makes upon us, the demand we can never escape. I'm also the neurobiological. And the primacy of perception. We're not going to miss perception in generating affect. Ecologically, the nervous system, the body, the environment are highly structured dynamical systems to each other on multiple levels. Merleau-Ponty said, the body can only become itself, be itself in this primary mode by going beyond itself in the subject-object dialogue. Perception is the primary mode of engagement for Merleau-Ponty. And all extremes, all interactions that have a life of their own, all compulsion, right, has a disturbance in self-perception. Well, maybe not all compulsion. So dissociation, depersonalization that we see here. Traditional psychology and cognitive science parse out perception, and they try to study in isolation. And this results in a crucial misunderstanding and distortion of the intrinsic relations between subjects and world. Perception is our primary mode in which we engage our surroundings, and we are our bodies. So these narratives seem to me to be reaching in an effortful way for the same kinds of experiences that I crave, where I feel myself to be a part of something larger. Eating disordered narratives are more like punctuated moments, though, in the flow of experience. The extreme state seems to be, at least perceptually, according to my patients, where there's no flow, in a way. It's more like staccato. There's no standing in oneself. They stand outside, and not in the usual way that ecstasy or ecstatic states would be. So it's the uncanny way that one's body or personhood doesn't feel like one's own. Faces look ugly, right? People look strange when you're alone, right? One feels out of sync, out of the moment, out of time. You look ugly. You look fat. So what do you think about this? To be beautiful means to be oneself. You don't need to be accepted by others. You need to accept yourself. Like, when you read this, do you feel better? Really? No. This is the kind of shit she's told at her inpatient facility. This is cognitivist bullshit. This makes me feel awful. I go, oh yeah, I don't need anyone. I feel beautiful. I don't need anyone. I don't need to be accepted by others. I accept myself. Yeah. And that lasts for like 30 seconds. Yeah. And then you're like, where am I? What am I doing? You get a sense of yourself from others. And of course, attachment history and how that lives and gets constituted or constellated. I was wondering if you guys were going to like eat that up like junky cereal. You're like, yeah, I feel better for like 5 seconds. It's like, okay. So this is my patient talking about the cognitivist interventions. You know what? They saved her life. They worked with her behaviorally and cognitively and got that girl to eat, and that's good. But to do that, I think they had to put her in an extreme state of their, like she had to drink the Kool-Aid to, you know, do all this. So anyway, she was losing weight. This is like January 22nd, 2016. She was losing weight, and I've only got 2 pages. So how are we doing on time?
It's 11:58.
Oh, perfect, perfect. I can still go 5 minutes over with your gracious permission. So this is in January, and she has been losing weight. She has been restricting. And also dancing. She was a ballet dancer. Wow, everything has to be just so rigid. So she's living and yet losing weight. And her mother's saying, you're going to go back. You're going back. You are going back. That's how she responds when she doesn't eat. I mean, talk about what we call high EE, right? High expressed emotion. It's not helpful. So she comes in, so she's a nutritionist. And I just do talk therapy with her. The nutritionist weighs her, measures her. I mean, doesn't give her the number, but you know what? It's important. It's a part of it. It's like nutrition, it's all the crap, and then I'm like, the good and say these things because she's swallowing. If you're swallowing your expression, you're not going to get regulated. That's the nervous system piece. You've got to get it out there and see what happens. Now, attachment systems tell her what she thinks is going to happen if she puts it out there. So we have to work with that. And so she's doing that with me. But she's doing it more with the nutritionist, Michelle. And it's helping, and she's taken a stand with her. So this is right before we had a family meeting. And I basically advocated for the patient to not go back here. And I said, let's try working in all the in-between spaces of our lives. Let's see. So she is so pissed, furious, and tearful. She doesn't want to go back. It would be 5 days a week for 4 hours a day that she would be doing this and going to school. She's furious. She considers it a prison, fake, and she fears like a substantial loss of self, basically. She feels she can't be herself when she's in there. She has to, you know, eat the cognitive bullshit and kind of nod her head. She says, I don't think about my eating disorder in life. I don't think about my eating disorder. That's what keeps me going. Life takes me to the eating disorder and keeps me from it. That paradox? Life is the only thing that keeps me going. Just being. 15 years old. She's a philosopher. Just being. If it becomes all about my eating disorder again, all about the talk of eating and measuring and self-care, I'm not there anymore. She's powerfully talking about this. I'll fall back to square one again. And it will repeat itself over and over. It'll never stop. I've got to make it through. This is my first relapse. Just put me back in treatment. It's so fake. I don't want to restrict. I want changes in my life. And if I don't get them there, I'll get them somehow. And that's what I use when I want something to change. And I want change. If you take me out of life, I'm going to fall into depression. I know I will. They try to make it talking about everybody's body is beautiful. Love your body. You should take care of your body. Your body, your body, your body. It's off the point. I know I need food. See, that's that shit. That's off the point. It doesn't get you hard times. This stuff they teach us. What gets you through is being in it. I'm in it, and everybody's mad at me. And I'm like, I can't resist. I'm like, what is it about it? What is it about the it? She says, going places, not being rushed, not having plans. I love the space. open to new ideas, new experiences. And so I'm just staring, gazing at her. She's gazing at me, and we linger here in silence. It's comfortable. And then she starts crying. She says, so she goes to this group, I think, once a week for group therapy. She said, I cried 2 weeks ago in group, and nobody cared. I said, I didn't want to be in recovery anymore. I want to be normal. I didn't want to think about food. I just want to be a normal teenager, and I didn't want to have an eating disorder. And she's crying. I said how hard it was, and I was bawling, and they said, what are you doing to keep yourself accountable? She said, I am not a checklist. I don't want to meet all my goals. I want to see me fight for it. I want to have struggle. I don't want to have goals and have everyone check off my goals. It's like a robot. It's so fake. So, last bit of case material. Yep. She comes in and she says, I don't know, I'm just forgetting to eat. I just forget to eat, I get distracted. And she's real, like, I don't feel a connection to her at all. Like, and this happens. This is the hardest part about working with patients who have something that loves them harder, faster, and more completely than you, right? You have to get in there somehow. So her affect feels kind of incongruent, feels like kind of fakey smiley. She gets like that. She's like, it's almost like plasticky. And I'm thinking, I react, right? I get this fear reaction. I think, oh, why isn't she acknowledging the eating disorder? Why isn't she talking about the eating disorder? You know, I'm like, because it triggers you that way, because if she's not eating, then she's getting close to starving. And this is a minor in my care. So instead I ask her what she thinks it means that she's just distracted and doesn't eat. What do you think that means? Blows right by it. More of the same. More of the same. And at this point, my feelings are really coming up. I can feel a building, a gathering, and I don't know what that is. So I let myself be, right? This is pure nervous system stuff. I don't edit it out of my head. I'm the therapist. I need to be calm. No, I let her feel me. And I let her feel, I reach with my words, I let it carry. Now my words are not so important, as you'll see, but it kind of holds a little of my distress, not too much, but a little. It shows my care, but mostly it shows the effort. I'm trying to understand here. So I say, I'm noticing my own feelings. And I don't know, something's missing. Something's missing. And that's how I understand anxiety. I think it's something's missing and we don't know what it is. She says, I say, but I need you, I want you to see your experience as I say this. This takes patience to like, really, it's coming, you know, which is because it's a little bit of a critical threshold, right? We don't want it to be too safe. But I give her a warning. I say, because I need you to help me formulate my experience. You know, I say, I noticed that I felt very concerned when you didn't mention the eating disorder at all. I don't know why that is. She goes, I notice I'm having a strong reaction to this because I'm really taking to heart what we decided a month ago. We're talking about me. This is me. This is a part of me. This eating disorder is me. Because sometimes the eating disorder is an object that stands over and against her. You know what I mean? That whole, depends on where you are in the perceptual field. She says, why should I talk about it? I'm having a hard time remembering to eat. And so I'm now put in check, and I'm nodding and saying, that helps me, yes. Oh yeah, that really helps me, because I'm realizing I got it wrong, but it's all part of our glue. And I say, yes, I think I was concerned when I didn't hear in your formulation what it meant for you that you were forgetting to eat, or at least you didn't bring it into me what it meant for you. I said, what's happening? Again, I'm noticing how I don't feel her need and emotion. Now, what have I done here? I'm probably picking up on her micro-communications, and I'm sending them back on my face. They move. They move like lightning. Your facial expression is not your own. It's like a shared, I don't know what it is. Got to think of a good metaphor for that. We are now in a semi-dysphoric state. And so I shift my body closer to her, kind of break it up, right? And I lean in, and she says, not with very much affect, she's really struggling and in pain with all the life stuff. Remember, it was life stuff that was distracting. Now she says, I'm really struggling and in pain with all the life stuff. And I'm just like, I have no idea what she means. So I say, it just feels so all alone in you, like you're over there all alone. And I felt alone, like you're bearing up under all this, alone. And the floodgates open. She starts crying. This is just, she says, I have such a desire to feel, and this is word for word, to experience, to feel in things, to feel a part of things, and not outside or off, to know whether I'm going or staying, to know what I'm doing about the guy she likes. Where am I going? What do I want? I don't know what I want. I so often don't know what I'm doing. And I know how when I was eating, I felt like I had more. And we use the term fuel. I came up with that fuel to feel the experience. She said, I felt more open, more receptive to others, to other sense of me when she was eating. I want to know what to do, where to go, knowing where I'm at, what I'm saying, feeling like, no, that's not it. It's more like this. This is what it is. Thank you. Thank you. Great audience. Thank you. So we can take a minute if you guys have any questions or comments. Yeah, technically we were going to go for till about 5 after. Yeah, so we got to... Oh, we're done then, yeah. 5 after is done. I can't do math. I just don't want to leave. Thank you. Yeah. Maybe not. Yeah. Let's go to lunch. Thank you. And if anybody has CEs that they need, check in the back of the room before you leave and get squared away with her. Thank you. Thank you.